Welcome to Table Talk, a 12-step journey with Nick Robinson.
Welcome back to the conversation. You are here with Rick and Nick as we continue talking about the 12 steps of recovery. And today we are on step number 11. That's a long journey that we've taken to get here. And I hope that as you have been listening along to our conversations, it's helped you grow, maybe brought up some questions, maybe answered some questions. I think I've grown tremendously from this experience of having this conversation. And that's our hope for everybody, is that we all grow by this learning. Rick, we are on step number 11 today. It's in my book in front of me, but I want you to tell me, what is step number 11?
Step number 11 is sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for His will for us and the power to carry it out.
Okay, so one thing I noticed, two things I'm noticing. That's a long description of a step.
Yes.
And this chapter in the book that you gave me as a reference.
Right.
It's one of the longer chapters. It's one of the maybe the longest chapter in this little, as far as I've gotten so far.
Right.
So I'm thinking maybe that statement needs a little unpacking.
It needs a little bit of work.
Yeah, maybe a lot. But you start us off and let's see where we go.
We can dissect it, yes. Well, I told you when we started this process that anytime that there's an and, it's a two-step process.
Okay.
So if you break it down, it's like sought through prayer to improve our conscious contact with God. Sought through meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. So it's that's two pillars, or two legs of a table.
Yeah,
right?
And it's not prayer or meditation, it's both.
Right. And fortunate for us, we did that one whole podcast on
prayer,
which is people relating and yearning for connection, or in this case, for conscious contact. So we've got this prayer, people relating and yearning for a connection or a conscience, not unconscious, but a conscious connection with God. So we have the advantage of already having discussed that. The second half of this, which is divided by a semicolon, so it's almost like this one step has two sides to it, but you've got those two legs. The second half of this it tells us what to pray for, praying only for the knowledge of His will, and then praying only for the power to carry it out. So there's the other two legs of this table, or what's pretty much holding this step up. So now all of a sudden we've got one step that has four legs. So this is a big step, but it's not insurmountable. So we're praying for, we're seeking through prayer and meditation for connection with God or our higher power, however you choose to define that, what you're connecting to, which is ultimately a higher power, which was defined and connected to in steps 1 and 2. Our life was unmanageable, and then we came to realize that there was a power greater than me, because Rick sure couldn't keep his life. I said it, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't keep Rick clean and sober and unmanageable again.
And so we started with this higher power, and now
Absolutely.
as we're getting to the end of these steps, or where these steps will continue to circulate, but that God, the higher power, is still here at the end.
And I turned my life over to Him in step 3 with Lacey, but now I've actually gotten to a place as a result of all of this. Now I'm praying to Him, connecting to Him, consciously connecting to Him. And now I'm actually so connected to Him, I'm praying only to know His will. Why? Because Rick's will, if I do Rick's way, I proved that Rick's way didn't work. It was Rick's way that made it unmanageable. If I do it Rick's way still, it takes me right back to pride.
Yeah. So we're substituting our inner life, our will, for God's will.
Right.
So the thing that we're praying for is internal transformation.
Right. Absolutely. Because if I go back to Rick's will, it takes me right back to control. It takes me right back to pride, which is ego. ego, EGO, takes me back to Joel E. Edging God out. When I edge God out, I'm back to unmanageable. I'm back to that cycle. I'm grabbing the reins again, and
So in some of these steps, there have been very prescriptive things, like you make a moral inventory, and that's let you sit down and you write things down, like you literally make a list,
Right.
and you literally review that list with somebody,
Right.
to help kind of fine tune, maybe narrow down, maybe think about what are you not writing down that you kind of know you should be writing down.
Right.
So some of these are pretty structured steps. What is there structure to this one? Because to pray is, and we did the whole episode on prayer, but to pray, there's not a direct, like, that is a direction, but it's also an open-ended direction versus like list some things versus pray.
well, if it's a loaded question, very loaded question, because if you think about a recurring theme from every guest that we've had has been there's a reason that these steps are in the order that they're in. So Dirk said in step 10, just kept resonating with me, was when he did his 10th step inventory over and over, it's because it kept taking him back to, I just wanted it to be right. I wanted it to be right. Well, you have a problem with always having to be right. I kept going. I watched it over and over. So when you get to step 11, this conscious contact with God reminds me of one thing. There is a God, and I'm not it. I'm not him.
And so like the structure of the prayer is that it's not necessarily even what we're saying, but who we're contacting. Like, okay, and trying to be in that contact and acknowledging that God is there.
Yes. However, when you ask the question about transformative prayer, when I pray and I seek only for His will and His knowledge for my life, more times than not, what changes is not the prayer. What changes is me.
Absolutely.
I'm not changing God. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. Scripture makes that very clear. So as I pray, it's not His will that changes. It's my heart. My mind transforms, and once my mind transforms and my heart softens, Rick changes. Rick's attitude changes. My personality softens. My bitterness, my resentments, my attitude, my anger, all the things that have come up. And again, we said the words start to blend. My moral character, my shortcomings, my attitudes, my character defects. All those words that started to kind of get used interchangeably, that transformative stuff starts to change in me, and then His will for how I deal with my neighbor, how I deal with you, how I deal with my employer, how I deal with situations, people, places, and things, that transforms, and I become a different person. And then I carry out how I carry that out. That's where the empowerment comes. The power to carry that out, the power to live differently gets altered. So then all of a sudden, the big book says, it's as I've been reborn. It's because I've changed, and now I have the power to live differently. So when you say it seems like everything's been prescripted or described differently, what's happened is I'm different now. So that's where the power to carry it out has occurred.
So yeah, so some of the transformation has already occurred, and now you need the power to keep acting on it.
The transformation started back in step 4 and 5. And Joe said the healing began at step 5. And Lisa said the miracle starts to happen at step 7. But really, the power comes seeking only for His will and the power. Superman, the
So,
power.
Okay, so I want to ask one more question before we just bring our guest out for today. So one of the words that's really standing out to me is praying only for knowledge and the power to carry it out. And so that makes some sense to me, because I don't want to be praying for $1 million because I think that's going to solve all my problems instead of God. But what about praying for other people? Like in this description, what if I'm praying for the needs of other people, or for other people to have knowledge and the power to carry out God's will? Does this step trying to limit me from doing that? Does that make sense?
It makes a great deal of sense. The word only still has to do with motive.
Okay.
Because I know still that my human agenda might be to pray. What if I pray something for Nick that's not?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking too. Like, I'm going to start praying for Rick, what I want for Rick, rather than what God wants for Rick.
Right, because I don't know what ultimately God's will is for you. I might think I know what's best for Nick, but maybe God has something even better for Nick than what Rick wants for Nick.
And I know there's words for some of the steps, and maybe this might not even be the right one for this one, but the word that's coming to my mind right now is trust. You're trusting God with God's will instead of our will for things.
Right.
Well, let's pause this conversation
Great.
and let's bring out today's guest. We're going to pause for a moment, and we'll be right back to continue this conversation.
All
Thank you,
right.
guys.
Great.
Welcome back as we continue our conversation on step number 11. Rick and I are now joined by David. David, first, thank you for joining us here for this conversation. Our prayer and our hope is that all of this is helping someone. Like that's why we're doing it. And for you to add your contribution to that is deeply meaningful. We assume, though, that being here is not always an easy choice. And so our first question to all of our guests is, why did you say yes to being here?
There's a person that was in our life. Her name is Tony Brumley. She's passed away now. She carried a light.
Okay.
And someone said, since she's gone, someone else needs to pick that light up.
Wow, yeah.
So I think both of us have started carrying the light. And I think it's God's will for me to be here, I think.
That's deeply personal.
Yeah.
Yeah. To lose someone meaningful and carry on the light. Yeah. Well, thank you for saying yes. Step 11. What are the challenges in step 11? What makes it hard?
Well, I'd have to go back to the beginning
Yeah.
and say that I had turned my back on God in the beginning. Early in recovery, I started participating.
Okay.
And, of course, 2 says came to believe. So
Yeah.
we do it in piecemeal. I didn't just all of a sudden believe. It took some time.
Yeah.
And so for 11, the hard part, I make it hard.
Okay.
I overcomplicate it. In the beginning, I didn't know how to pray. And so I thought I had to do prayer just perfect,
Yeah.
or he wouldn't understand me. And today I understand that he knows all. And, I pick my phone up and I'm talking to him in prayer, just like it's a relationship.
Yeah.
So, sought through and seek. That would be something that I practice. daily.
So so you didn't know how to pray, and now you practice prayer daily. How did you learn? What shaped you?
You know, there's a third step prayer. There's a prayer for every step.
Yeah.
In the book that I follow, it says, as long as my intention and my they're genuine. As long as I mean the same thing, it doesn't have to be word for word. As long as I'm conscious contact, as long as it means the same. And a lot of, this one guy in a meeting told me, the simplest prayer that I can recite is, God help me. And that's simple.
And no flowery language, it's
Right.
just, it's simple and plain.
I didn't, I don't talk thee, thou, the.
Oh, yeah.
I don't talk like that regularly. The relationship I have with God, He understands. And like I said, I'm on my cell phone. I'm like, God, help me today. So it's when I overcomplicate it. Or and we're getting on into step 11, kind of what Rick was saying earlier. It's only, that word only, of God's will.
Yeah.
The knowledge is.
So when you overcomplicate it, what kind of complications? Can you give us an example of one way that you might add a complication?
In prayer?
Yeah.
In prayer, when I start praying for $1 million, or
Yeah.
when I start praying for all these materialistic things.
Yeah.
Really, somebody asked me one time to make a list of what you think God could do for you, what you would want God to.
Wow, yeah.
And so I made a list that said love, forgiveness, grace.
Yeah.
I said sense of humor back, because we lose ourselves.
Yeah.
Our personality is totally different, kind of like what Rick was saying earlier. It's a personality change significant enough for long-term recovery. I like that phrase right there. So when I started changing and following God's will, or at least praying for God's will, He started showing me a lot of stuff. Love for others, tolerance, acceptance, these spiritual principles that we practice. So,
Which strikes me right now in this moment as maybe being even more valuable than the material things that we might pray for.
oh, tenfold.
Yeah. It may be harder to believe if you have rent due and you don't have the money for it, but if you don't have love in your life, that's its own kind of bankruptcy.
God has always provided. Sometimes it was a struggle.
Yeah.
But He was teaching me, hey, get up off your butt and start moving. Go out here and start,
Yeah.
So in step 4, we write down fear, self-esteem.
Yeah.
And of course, there's resentments and harm to others. But all these things that I'm trying to now be is what God's asked me to do is, have love in my integrity, all these spiritual principles that we now practice, forgiveness. And I truly just try to practice.
Yeah.
I do not do this perfect at all.
Yeah.
And that's what I would like to share is it doesn't have to be perfect. I was angry with God, and He still listened.
God can handle our anger for sure.
Yeah, He's all right with me, because I was still in conscious contact.
Yeah.
Just because I was mad, He says, that's all right. You can be mad.
No, that's why I try to tell people, like, if you're in deep grief or you're just mad about anything, like, instead of not praying, tell God about how mad you are.
Sure.
And that keeps the communication and the contact open. So it's better than shutting down. So there's prayer. So I'm thinking too, so you're praying for these two things. You're praying to know His will, know God's will, and the power to carry it out. And so I find myself wondering in your life if one of those is harder than the other. If knowing God's will is harder than carrying God's will out, or carrying God's will out is harder than knowing God's will for your life.
So I pray for the power because I'm pulling self-will back. And I can now recognize, oh, I'm trying to run Dave's life when I'm not God.
Yeah.
But I can now recognize it, and I'm like, oh, I need your power. So we say this phrase, the next right thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's God's will. Not, hey, I want this, that, and, a brand new car and all this other stuff. It's like, God has provided me everything. I always have had enough. And he doesn't give me more. I hate to say that. Life gives me more than what I can handle. Then I lean into God when I'm
That's
struggling.
a good way of saying it.
Yeah, because of that. So,
because some people are like, God won't give you more than you can handle. And we want to be careful with that kind of language.
but it's life. It's life that gives us those things. It's when we get those things, we lean into God.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yeah, because if God's the one giving us the problem, then it's harder to lean in.
Oh,
So
then
God's with us in the problem, not giving us the problem.
Then I blame him.
Yeah.
And that's where I started. Early in my recovery was I was always thinking that God gave me the struggle. No, he gave me opportunity to grow through that hardship. And then I did grow. And I'm still growing.
Yeah. I'm wondering, so as you look back over years of addiction, I don't know your story really, but as you look back over it, do you see God's presence in places of your story that maybe you didn't see God there before?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like to say it like this, and this is what the last token I got. They said, hey, how do you do it? How'd you do it? I said, daily spiritual maintenance. That in a nutshell. Am I putting any action in? And, not only prayer, but meditation. So we were kind of kidding Rick a minute ago about breathing.
Yeah.
A conscious contact is an intentional breath. And so God asked me, you want to pause, Dave? Oh, yeah, I do want to pause. He says, well, then take a breath. And that's what I hear him say is just take a breath. We take, 23,000 breaths a day and hardly any of them that are intentional.
Yeah, we're paying attention to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
if you were going to teach somebody how to pause and take a breath, is this a complicated thing? Do we need to give people directions on how to pause and take a breath, or is it just remembering, hey, let's pause and take a breath? Like, is there a how-to guide for that?
there is.
Okay.
And I go on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah.
But I really do.
Yeah.
A lot of the people, that go to meetings, they study the book.
Yeah.
There is a spiritual side of this and also a psychiatry side of this.
Yeah.
So I listen to a lot of stuff on how to breathe, how to try to maybe clear my mind, which is very hard.
No.
But if you concentrate on the breath, you're more apt to your brain is listening to the breath more than it is all the noise of the world.
Yeah.
So, but then you can and somebody else said, is that God's voice I hear? Or is that Dave's voice that's real soft?
How do you know the difference?
So I have to pause.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's Dave's will. And sometimes I have to step back and maybe take a few moments because Dave's voice is a little louder. God's voice is a little softer. And I can hear it when I'm paying attention. So, yeah, that's a tricky one.
I love this idea of almost turning step 11 also into this list-making step of what could God give you? And like writing down that love and that, whatever people
Absolutely.
Really need from God. I think that would be a really beneficial action for everybody to do. One of the things that we talk about on this conversation too is the overlap or the parallels between recovery and discipleship. And this constant conscious contact with God and knowing God's will and carrying it out is discipleship. Like being in contact with God and then doing what God wants us to do. Like that's the name of the game, I think.
So Nick,
Yeah.
you say that, and my sponsor's in my head right
Yeah,
now.
go for it.
I can hear him. How can I be of maximum service to others? I think that's God's will, but it's also kind of like you said, discipleship. It's service, suiting up and showing up to meetings that, okay, I've got X amount of 24 hours, quite a bit of sobriety time, but why do I keep showing up? Service to others, to be a maximum service,
Yeah.
and to be there for that newcomer that's just walking in the room and saying, "Man, I don't know if I can do this." So I think everybody has a little bit of, they call it contempt prior to investigation. And it's not going to work for me, and I'm this unique person in recovery that's not going to work for. And without trying, without practicing, they don't know. It's really a denial game that we play in our head. So.
And I'm noticing too, as you say, like being maximum service to others. I mean, that's actual action.
Yes.
So like this prayer and the power to carry out God's will isn't some abstract thing. You're actually showing up in rooms,
Yes.
and helping people.
Absolutely.
You're showing up and belonging to a community. There's real action that goes behind this. It's not just, I don't know, a monk in a monastery somewhere removed from everyone else spending time in prayer. It's sending you back out into the world.
So I got my last arrest.
Okay.
I was a menace to my community.
Okay.
I'd lived there for 20 years. I walked around and apologized to my neighbors. And they knew that, I'd been there for 20 years. And I'm sure they saw the police officers that were. But they said, "What do you mean, Dave?" And I'm like, I just want to apologize.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be a pillar of my community again. Today, I feel better about who I am and
Yeah.
what I do.
Amen.
Because of God.
Yeah.
I had a spiritual malady, and didn't know it. And once I keep seeking and sought, and continuously going to meetings, I say it like this: God's in disguise in these chairs right here, and He's talking through you, and He's talking through you, and it's only when I listen or pay attention I can hear God's voice, and it comes through other people.
And that will preach, and that will wrap up this part of our conversation. David, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to pause again for just another moment as we come back for a brief wrap up here with step number 11. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Welcome back as we wrap up our conversation on step number 11 of this 12-step journey. I want to focus on the last part of the steps description, the power to carry it out, to carry out God's will. Rick, can you tell us just a little bit more about that, the action orientation part of this?
Well, there were a couple of things that Dave said that struck me, when he was talking about moving from anger to carrying out productively and acting out the power of the transformation. And he talked about love. He talked about tolerance for his neighbors, going and making amends to the people where he had been a menace to society. Those are some, powerful but, very humbling initiatives to take on. In the question that you asked from a sponsorship or from a discipleship perspective. And what it really prompted in my head was kind of the, fruits of the Spirit, that you act out of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control. Those are words, really, that we read them, but to act in love, with patience and kindness to your neighbor, to speak with tenderness towards your children, or to be tolerant and caring and with self-control towards people that otherwise would, especially in early addiction or in early recovery, out of anger or quick-tempered, which I did on multiple occasions, or in a menacing way to your neighbors. Get off my lawn! Can't you control your dog? Don't you know it's late? Don't let them out. Whatever we do. But I was thinking about the church in Antioch. They were the first ones. Paul writes, about the church in Antioch was the first ones that were known as Christians, but they were known as such by their love. Yeah. See how they love one another. It takes me back to the big book. It talks about working with others, and it says in chapter 7, to be helpful is our only aim. Well, how do we do that? By our service work, by the way that we come alongside each other, by our sponsorship, talking about going to meetings. We've talked about, in one of the, I don't remember which podcast it was, the idea of 90 meetings in 90 days. Yeah. Well, what would it be like if there were, somebody did 90 Bible studies in 90 days? Yeah. Or if, you had 30 men who met for 30 minutes to pray in this building for 30 days, just to pray about the needs of the church. What would the impact of its ministry, or if we prayed for the missionaries that were sponsored, or the initiatives, what would the impact of that be? I mean, step work is work. Ministry work is work. The level of commitment that it takes to do this stuff, keep coming back. It works if you work it. So if you're willing to put in the initiative and the effort. So that was kind of some of the stuff that was running through my head as I was listening to Dave.
And that leads me to James, which is one of your favorite books, I know.
Absolutely.
Faith without works is dead.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of interior change, and here's also exterior change that's coming with it. Exterior actions that are different because of the interior change that has happened, but still not the difference that we're trying to do. It's what God wants us to do that we're trying to fulfill.
Well, it resonates with me in one of the very early podcasts. You said in communication and prayer, you can tell your wife that you love her, but if you don't show her, it's the old show me, don't tell me. Yeah. So show and tell takes on a totally different meaning. I can pull the wool over my eyes of my sponsor and tell him over the phone that I'm working my program, I'm doing my steps, but if one of the expectations is that I attend meetings, he shows up at the meeting and I'm not there, guess what? I'm still in denial and I'm lying to my sponsor. It's not going to take him very long before he knows that I'm not really committed to the program. Yeah. How long does it take to say, yeah, I'm really in this from a discipleship standpoint before my mentor, like my pastor, knows he's not really serious about this and going to hold me accountable?
Well, may we all put our faith and our recovery into action. That's going to wrap up our conversation on step number 11. We hope you'll join us next time for step number 12, which is 12 out of 12.
There you
we will have covered all of the steps. So thank you again. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, David, for being part of this conversation. We'll see you next time.